In September 1942, something happened that most Americans have never heard about. A Japanese military aircraft flew over continental United States and dropped bombs on American soil. Not Pearl Harbor, not Hawaii, but the mainland United States. The man at the controls was a Japanese naval pilot named Nobuo Fujita. After Pearl Harbor, Japanese leaders searched for ways to strike the American homeland itself. They hoped that attacks on the mainland might damage morale and force the United States to divert resources away from the Pacific. The problem was distance. America was simply too far away for conventional bombing raids. So the Japanese developed an unusual solution. Some of their submarines carried small aircraft inside watertight hangars. Once the submarine surfaced, the aircraft could be assembled on deck, launched by catapult, complete its mission, and then return to the waiting submarine. It was one of the strangest weapon systems of the Second World War. In the summer of 1942, the submarine I-25 crossed the Pacific Ocean and headed for the coast of Oregon. Aboard was Nobuo Fujita and a small floatplane carrying incendiary bombs. The target was not a city, and it was not a military base. Instead, Japanese planners chose the forests of the Pacific Northwest. Their hope was that huge forest fires would spread through Oregon and neighbouring states, causing panic and tying down American resources. On the morning of 9th of September 1942, Fujita took off from the submarine and headed inland. Below him stretched miles of dense forest. Flying over the Oregon wilderness, he released 2 incendiary bombs before turning back towards the Pacific. For a brief moment, Japan had achieved something extraordinary. An enemy aircraft had bombed the continental United States. Yet the mission failed to achieve its purpose. Recent rainfall had left the forest damp, and the fire caused by the bombs remained relatively small. Forest workers and firefighters quickly brought the situation under control. A second bombing mission was carried out later that month, but it produced a similar result. The attacks caused little real damage and were soon forgotten by most Americans. From a military perspective, the operation had failed. No major fires had been started, no significant damage had been inflicted, and the attacks had almost no impact on the wider course of the war. Yet the raids remain historically significant. They were the only aerial bombing attacks carried out by an enemy pilot against the continental United States during the Second World War. For decades, the story remained largely unknown. While Americans remembered Pearl Harbor, Midway, Iwo Jima, and D-Day, very few remembered the Japanese pilot who had crossed the Pacific and dropped bombs on Oregon. Fujita himself survived the war and returned to civilian life in Japan. The bombing missions became little more than a strange footnote in history. But then, 20 years later, something unexpected happened. In 1962, the town of Brookings, Oregon, invited Nobuo Fujita to visit the area he once attacked. At first, he was reluctant to accept. He feared hostility and believed many Americans would still hate him for what he had done during the war. According to later accounts, he even brought a family samurai sword with him. The sword had been in his family for centuries. Instead of anger, Fujita received a warm welcome. As a gesture of friendship and reconciliation, he presented the sword to the town. Over the years he returned several times, building close relationships with local residents and helping organise exchanges between Japanese and American students. The former enemy pilot became an honoured guest. When Fujita died in 1997, some of his ashes were scattered near the forest he had once attempted to set on fire. It's one of the most remarkable stories to emerge from the Second World War. A man who once crossed the Pacific to bomb America ultimately became a symbol of friendship between former enemies, and what began as a secret wartime mission ended as one of the most unexpected stories of reconciliation in modern history.